gentlemen, may I have your attention? It was Joseph's birthday. He was turning 17, so he and his friends partied like rock stars. And like it was 1999. At this party, his dad presented him with a totally rad gift, a coat of many colors. His brothers became very jealous because the coats they received on their birthdays were not nearly as cool as Joseph's. Joseph walked around the room, so excited to show his brothers his coat. But all he got in return were fake smiles, and his brothers all huddled together, whispering and pointing at him as he talked. Joseph was sad and very lonely, but he was still very excited about his new coat. He was so excited that he even wore it to bed, where he soon fell into a deep sleep and dreamed a dream. Joseph dreamed that his brothers were in the field harvesting grain, and their bundles of grain all bowed down to him. And they bowed down some more. And they kept bowing. And then they stopped. And Joseph turned over. And he snored a little bit. And then he had another dream. He dreamed that his brothers were on Dancing with the Stars, and they waltzed all night. Wait, that was another dream. But he did have a dream about stars. He dreamt that the sun and the moon and 11 stars, the same amount of brothers he had, were bowing down to him. And the stars kept bowing down to him. And the stars bowed down more, even faster. And then they stopped. It was like a shooting star fiesta. He woke up. Some call that a meteor shower. He woke up, went outside, and he called all of his brothers around him. Speechless because of the shocking nature of his dreams, he could only describe his dreams by using his hands. They all rolled their eyes and folded their arms and walked away. Joseph brushed it off his shoulder and went to hang out with his sheep friends. His brothers stepped back into the light and held a secret meeting. They were still very jealous. They laughed evil laughs. And they decided to plot against him. Here comes the dreamer, they taunted as he walked up. Let's kill him and throw him into a deep pit and say that a wild dingo ate him for dinner. So they went to Joseph and took off his totally rad coat and threw him into a cistern, and he went down and down, and he ran through the air as he was falling down, and then he hit the bottom. They sat down and had a picnic. While they were eating, they saw some other people driving up. They laughed like evil villains again. Why would we kill him when instead we could sell him and make money? They laughed again. Let's sell him to these dudes. So they pulled him up out of the pit. And they sold him for $20. Then they took the coat of many colors, the one they were so jealous about, and they dipped it in animal blood. And they brought it back to their father. He knew right away that it was Joseph's coat, and he was very upset. Not mad upset, he was sad upset. He believed that a wild animal had attacked and killed his favorite son. He cried, and he cried, and he tore his clothes and fell to his knees. And he cried as loud as he could possibly cry. A deep manly cry. Meanwhile, Offset, the other guys sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials. Now, the Lord was with Joseph. As he lived in the household of his Egyptian master. One day, sometimes Potiphar verses the songs for Pharaoh, because he missed his cue earlier. One day, while Joseph was sweeping around the house, Potiphar came in to see how he was doing. He watched Joseph pick up the rugs from the floor and beat them until they were clean. He saw Joseph chopping firewood with an axe. Potiphar noticed that the Lord was with Joseph. And he put him in charge of the entire household. With Joseph in charge, Potiphar's land and household thrived like never before. It was unbelievable. Potiphar stood on a chair and looked out across his homestead. He leapt up and down on the chair with glee because the Lord was with Joseph. Potiphar was full of joy, and he jumped off his chair and went around singing, "Things could not be any better."
Things could not be any better. Things could not be any better.
And although it was a very popular Israeli tune, he couldn't remember the rest of the lyrics.
Things could not be.
So he just made up the rest of them as he walked off stage.
Things could not be any better because Joseph is awesome.
Now, not only was Joseph awesome, but he was also an extremely attractive man. Every day, he would practice posing his muscular body in front of the mirror. His muscles burst out of his clothes. He did several push-ups. He started clapping between push-ups. He even did a push-up with one arm. He did. And then he tried a no-arm push-up. He decided to do crunches instead. As Joseph was working out, Potiphar's wife walked in. And because he was a hottie with a body, she called out to him in a very seductive voice, "Oh, lover boy."
Lover boy.
Joseph, still flexing and working out, said, "Hello, Mrs. Potiphar's wife."
Oh, hello, Miss Potiphar's wife.
She said in an even more seductive voice, "Why don't you stop what you are doing and come over here and give me a kiss?"
Why don't you stop what you are doing and come over here and give me a kiss?
Joseph just stood there in shock. After checking out Potiphar's wife, he jumped up on the chair and declared, "I am responsible for this entire household.
I am responsible for this entire household.
All of it is at my disposal.
All of it is at my disposal.
The only thing I can't have is you.
The only thing I can't have is you.
Away from me, foul temptress."
Away from me, temptress.
Potiphar's wife stormed off quite furiously. Rewind. A little more furiously than that. She didn't like being rejected. Joseph left the other way. The next day, Potiphar's wife attempted to get Joseph to come hang out with her again. But Joseph refused because the Lord was with Joseph. A few days later, Joseph to take care of his duties, but he noticed that no one was around. Joseph shouted, "Hello?"
Hello?
No one answered. So again he shouted.
Hello?
This time there came an answer. A sultry, alluring voice answered back. "Hello, my little love bug, Joseph."
Hello, my little love bug, Joseph.
Potiphar's wife seized Joseph by the shirt and said, "Come, give me a big smoochy smooch."
Oh, give me a big smoochy smooch.
Joseph refused. He shook his head violently. She wouldn't let go of his shirt. So in order to, he's really ahead of schedule. So Joseph refused violently. His shirt was still on. She wouldn't let go of his shirt. So in order to escape, he wiggled his way out of his shirt and left it in her hand and ran away naked. As she held his shirt and sniffed his manly scent, she panicked and shouted to the servants, "That Hebrew slave tried to take advantage of me.
That Hebrew slave tried to take advantage of me.
Look, I have his shirt in my hand to prove it."
Look, I have my shirt in his hand to prove it.
It was in your hand, actually. Just then, Mr. Potiphar walked in and was overcome with anger. He was steaming. He jumped up and down, and up and down, and up and down. Except we're not allowed to jump in here, so he stopped. And he said, "That loser Joseph."
That loser, Joseph.
Still unable to control his rage, he kicked over the chair. Then he picked up an axe by his right foot, or a sword by his left, and began to hit the chair. At the peak of his rage, he shouted, "Ense, Osufe, Ute, Elje! Ense, Osufe, Ute, Elje!" That's Pig Latin for "send Joseph to jail." So he sent Joseph to jail. That's not good. While Joseph was in jail, he met some interesting characters in the cell next door. The king's cupbearer and baker had also been sent to jail because they offended the king. One night, while they were taking a little snooze, they each dreamed a dream. In the morning, Joseph offered to interpret them. So they called him over from his cell. In the cupbearer's dream, there was a vine with 3 clusters of grapes that may or may not have been in a plastic bag. The cupbearer in the dream squeezed the grapes into Pharaoh's cup because he was cupbearer to the king. Joseph told the cupbearer that in 3 days he would be out of prison and have his job back, and he was free to enjoy his grape juice. The cupbearer skipped away.
Yay.
In the baker's dream, there were 3 baskets of bread balancing on his head. Or in this case, just 3 loaves. Or, 2, because we're at camp.
I'll eat those.
Now, the goodies in the baskets, the loaves of bread, were for Pharaoh, but the birds in the dream were eating them out of the basket. Wow. These are vicious birds. Unfortunately, this guy was out of luck. Joseph told him that his dream meant that in 3 days, Pharaoh would kill him and the birds would come and eat his body. The baker started sobbing uncontrollably. And then 3 days later, both things happened just as Joseph had said.
I'm free! I'm free! I'm free! I'm free!
Some time went by in the land, and 2 years later, another dream happened. This time it was Pharaoh who had the dream. He dreamed he was standing by the river. In his dream, he really stood up by the river. And he saw 7 skinny cows eating 7 fat cows. Pharaoh snored and rolled over and had another dream. This time he dreamed that 7 skinny stalks of grain swallowed up 7 huge stalks of grain. He thought it was pretty weird that he kept dreaming about farm things, so he snored again, rolled over, and woke up. In the morning, he was a little freaked out. He needed to know what his dreams meant. The cupbearer remembered that Joseph could interpret dreams, so Pharaoh told him to call Joseph out of jail. He took the long way home. Joseph said, "I cannot interpret dreams, but God will give you the answer you desire."
But the Lord will interpret your dream.
Pharaoh told his crazy dreams to Joseph, talking crazily with his hands. Joseph consulted with God and was able to tell Pharaoh exactly what his dreams meant. They both meant the same thing. The people would have 7 years of abundance where they would party and feast and live a wonderful life with lots of food. But after that, there would be 7 years of famine where all the crops would die and the people would go hungry and never have enough. Pharaoh was a pretty smart dude and knew he needed a plan. He needed to put somebody in charge for the next 7 years so that when the bad 7 years hit, they would have enough stored up and the nation would still be able to function. Because Joseph was awesome and interpreted his dream, Pharaoh decided to pull Joseph out of jail forever and put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. He gave him sweet new clothes to wear, and a sweet new hat. Now, Joseph was only 30 years old when this all happened, and I know that sounds like super old, but it's actually pretty young to be in charge of a whole country. So while he was in charge, he collected all the extra food and all the grapes that fell on the floor, and he stored it in preparation for the famine. Then, when the 7 years ended, everyone in all the lands went hungry, but the people in Egypt still had food, ready to eat and feast on. People in the other lands started coming to Egypt because Pharaoh had sent them to Joseph. Joseph opened up the storehouses and the Tupperware and shared his food with all the lands. And they lived happily ever after, because technically that's not the end of the story. This is the part where Mr. Tim is going to come up.
Yay!